Mr. Reister, thank you for joining us. We wanted to have just time to sit down with you and kind of pick your brain a little bit on the martial arts journey. So would you mind walking us through what prompted you to take up martial arts, and what did that journey look like over the years for you?
Well, first of all, after I got out of the military, I really felt like that training was not adequate for self-defense. So I started looking around at martial arts. I had done boxing and wrestling, through school, and I found, like Taekwondo and the other arts didn't really suit me. And just by chance, I ran into a guy who was teaching Jeet Kune Do, and gave me a free lesson to try it out, and that's all it took. I was hooked. And then about a few months into it, I found out I was also learning Kali and Muay Thai. He was just teaching whatever he was getting from my current instructors, Inosanto, Master Chai, at the time Larry Hartzell was still alive, and Francis Fong.
And what year did you start, if you don't mind
It was
dating?
in 1985, yeah. And I first met Sifu Dan in 86, and Francis Fong and Larry Hartzell and Master Chai all that same year. And after my original instructor moved away, I started training with them directly, and there wasn't anyone in Texas teaching, and so I figured I had to teach if I wanted to learn. So that's why I started the school originally.
Awesome. And what year did you open up your school?
It was 87, September of 87, I think. Somewhere in that area.
One of our students asked, when you were starting off your journey, what systems or what applications were among the easier things that you picked up on, and what were some of the most difficult for you to pick up on?
I think the thing I liked at first was the Jun Fan Wing Chun. It just suited me. The boxing, worked well. I didn't really like Filipino martial arts. I didn't like working with sticks. So I really enjoyed the kicking and the punching and the Muay Thai. And of course Wing Chun. For some reason, it just, I really liked that. So I really focused on Jun Fan and Wing Chun mostly at first when I was teaching. Although begrudgingly, I did Filipino martial arts as well.
And what turned a leaf for you, like with going from not liking it as much to then being really good at teaching it, and how did you get yourself there?
Well, really, that's a good question. I think that the versatility of it really started to come through after I got through the humdrum basic drills. It really came across as being something that could be effective. And of course, probably the first 4 or 5 actual street fights that I had as an adult involved weapons. So I was like, I think I need something that's more weapon oriented. And so that kind of helped turn the corner.
And going back into that time zone in the 80s and training there, what do you think was one of the best principles taught by either Inosanto or Hartzell that you thought was a really great differentiator from maybe what other experts at the time were teaching? I think was still like solid back then that still applies to now.
Well, really, something that Larry Hartzell always taught, and it came to ring true with all the instructors, with the exception of the sport arts, is that most fights are going to be up close and personal. They're going to happen real quick, and so you have to be decisive. So we didn't really have that we're sparring kind of atmosphere. It was pretty much directly, close the distance and finish the fight. And that's something that's still true to this day. People back then, nobody knew what MMA was, and we were already practicing that, with the exception it was for the street, not for the ring. So.
Well, then to think over 30 years later, and then we produced the book in which we use for the Reister curriculum. How did that come together? I mean, that's a culmination of so many years of practice and research. How did you get so dwindled down to this essential curriculum?
That was over time, over a course of years going through, and really it's the students who decided that, from the standpoint that, what can you absorb? How much can you absorb and get good at in the amount of time we have to train? And that's mostly what drove, what's going to stay and what's going to go is that aspect. For instance, I really enjoy a lot of things like stick and dagger, sword and dagger training. Just didn't really make the cut in the early levels because it's just hard to keep. So you can train a student for months and months and months, and they come back and they don't remember any of that. But the single stick and the single knife, the very basic structures, they could keep if you focused on it and kept focusing on it. The same with the Wing Chun. There's a lot of stuff I left out of the belt curriculum, and that's mainly because it's all skill development, but it's fluff. I kind of use the term it's kills time in class. So as a young instructor, I wanted as much of that as I could get, because it's hard to fill 2.5 hours with important actual drills, exercises, training. I found out a lot of it was redundant, so all that redundancy, I kind of filtered that out. What do you need to learn in order to make it functional, yet keep it traditional in a sense?
When you think about students progressing through the system and developing the attributes, that we come from such a Western mindset of I have to earn certain belts to that's progress as a belt, and you kind of strip some of that away. What do you want students to know in terms of, hey, this is a benchmark for progress as you're journeying through this curriculum?
That's a good question. I think it's not so much if you achieve the rank, that's wonderful. But if you have a sense of yourself that you can do it, my instructor had a saying, he would say, when you know, then you don't have any questions. And I was like, what does that mean? Well, what that means is, when you know something absolutely, you're good at it, you can execute it. And if you look at the curriculum, there's overlap in the Wing Chun and the Panantukan and Suntokan, and there's actually overlap in the knife system and the Kali system. Even though the knife system is mostly Wing Chun, you can see that there's certain things that are core elements and they have to be developed. And once you kind of go through and get to a certain level, it's really interesting. You can see a student and you say, here's the, let's just say, gold belt level curriculum. Do this and this and this. And they're never done that, never read that hard. They know what I'm talking about. Because as they developed up to that level, they've already had everything over and over again, maybe just not in that way. So as opposed to it being on the first strike, now it's on the third. But it's the same material.
When if you had a room full of students, obviously in all different walks of life and skill levels, what would be one universal training just piece of advice you'd give to each of them that you feel like would universally be applicable to help them progress as martial artists and in personal protection?
Well, first of all, train slow and precise. If you're inaccurate and you're sloppy, really it doesn't matter what system it is, it's going to fall on its face. So train slow and precise. Make sure your movements are correct. Don't ignore the basics. Keep the basics close to you. And then, whatever's in your mind to do, you can do. That's what I have to say. Your mindset is everything. If you're not, in tune with your mind, your body, it doesn't matter really how good you are. It's not going to help.
Well, we've heard it said over and over that sometimes, whether it's Wing Chun or Jeet Kune Do, so many people can get into the weeds and some of the fluff building and things. We have a hard time, I think, sometimes as students of overanalyzing instead of just reacting or responding appropriately. What advice would you give to students that want to get out of that overthinking, overanalyzing mode and into simply responding appropriately?
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, that I think throughout the ages, that question is still ringing in everybody's minds. I think that practicing correctly, having a good training partner or partners, and make sure that they teach you by giving you good energy, because you can, and I've seen it in my own students. You can train as much as you want and get as much skill as you want, but if you don't have good training partners that are going to test you and make you do things, you're not going to develop that. That I don't know what I'm going to do, but whatever it is going to work. And that's for me, that's the way it works. I never think about what am I going to use, Wing Chun or Kali, or it'll probably be the last thing I thought I would do is what's going to come out, and that's how it's just going to come out. And if you're thinking about that or trying to make choices between systems or application of technique, you're always going to be in your frontal lobe. To get to the back of your mind, to the alpha brain state. You have to have consistency in training. You have to have accurate training in the sense that your training partners actually feed you. They don't punch you to the side, and you'll develop that sixth sense of even when someone walks up to you, what's going on. It kind of develops with good training, and it takes good training partners. And, it's something that I've seen probably more tests from this group than I have from any group that I have. Maybe Finland, but they've been for 20 years. So, and you guys have good relationship, and you all work hard, and you're all focused on getting better, and that's how you do it right there.
And when you think of mindset too, and things that have been poured into you over the years, for everyone right here, right now, what would be the best just nugget of wisdom you'd share on developing the right mindset, not only for survival, but to be just a really effective martial artist as well?
Well, first of all, you have to be willing to execute. If you're not willing to execute, you have to answer that question. I think in your mind beforehand. You should do it while you're training, but if you're not sure you're going to execute, you don't have the willingness to do that, you're going to struggle. No matter what system. So make that decision. You're going to train. You're going to train for self-defense, and that's how you're going to execute it. And you have that in your mind when you're walking around. You just don't let people walk up to you that you don't know. You can be polite and friendly without letting people into your perimeter, your personal space. And then, follow your gut instinct would be the best thing to do. If you feel like there's something wrong, probably is. So, when in doubt, whip it out,
And bonus question, say you're alone at your training space and you go to turn on a playlist, what's your ultimate jam out to just go hard with the blade or kickbox or whatever?
Probably AC/DC, Yeah.
I knew it.
Your daughter just raised her hand, said you know.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, probably, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, AC/DC, it's good.
Thank you, Sifu Rice. I appreciate you.
Thank you.